So I won't say their current situation, I'll just get down to it. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome to the Deansy Boys Show. I am your host, Reece Deans, and this is
Aaron Langley.
And today we're at the Pill Millennium Centre and we are conducting an interview with a former WWE Intercontinental Champion and ECW Heavyweight Champion. He is known as the Franchise. His name is Shane Douglas. Shane, thanks for coming on the show, pal.
Good to be here, buddy. How you doing today?
Oh, not too bad myself. Now, it said on the poster, first time in Wales. Is that true then?
That is true. Yeah, this is the first time I've been here, and I've been thoroughly impressed. Most times when we travel, I was just telling the guy I was traveling with earlier today, for all the years I've traveled, I can tell you what the airports look like, I can tell you what the arenas look like, the hotels, and the roads in between them. I can't tell you what the sites in the areas look like, because we literally were point A to B to C all the time for that time. This time coming to England and Wales and traveling all over, I've been out to parts of the countryside I've never seen before, and it amazed me how much it was like Pennsylvania, where I'm from. Very, very similar. The hills and the fields, and I felt like I was at home. It's a beautiful country.
Well, first we can say, not sorry, but for you, brilliant. So my first question I'm going to ask you, how did you start off in the wrestling business? You must have a great story.
Actually, no, I never planned on being a pro wrestler. I started wrestling whenever I was in 8th grade. My friends and I built a wrestling ring. We had seen a kid got his picture in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. He had built a homemade ring and it was pathetic. And he got his picture in the magazine for that. Well, we were all pretty handy and thought we could build a better ring than that. And we did. We set out and built a pretty damn professional ring. And then we played around with it for a couple of weeks and didn't know what else to do. And at that time, Muscular Dystrophy Association, that does the Labor Day telethon to raise money, or used to, I don't think they still do it, but they used to do the Labor Day telethon to raise money for research. They used to ask kids to put on backyard carnivals to raise money. And they'd raise $5, $10, $20 and send it in. So we decided we'd put on a backyard wrestling show and see how many tickets we could sell, see what we could do. And looking back on it, knowing the business as I do now, we did a pretty professional job. We went around to local businesses and had things donated to get raffle off. And more than that, the woman, her name's Angeline Paparella. She's long since passed away. She had been a nurse that contracted adult onset muscular dystrophy. This woman was such an inspiration because she could move only a few fingers on each hand. She was totally paralyzed. And she was the head of the local chapter. And this woman worked tirelessly to beat muscular dystrophy. It was really inspirational to see. And I think she was so taken back by these 8th and 7th grade punks who wanted to raise money for muscular dystrophy. She called me one day and she said, there's a wrestler, professional wrestler that lives locally that said if he's off that day, he may stop by and help with the show. I had no idea. I mean, I knew Bruno Sammartino lived in Pittsburgh, but I didn't know anybody else. And she said, it's an Italian name. So of course I said Bruno Sammartino, and she said, no, it's not Bruno. And she started like stammering around a name. She said, it's like Dina Nani, Don Nuni. And right away I knew Dominic DeNucci. He was the World Tag Team Champion at the time with Dino Bravo. I said, Dominic DeNucci, and she said, yeah. I was like, oh my God, Dominic DeNucci. I was a big fan, you know. So she put us in contact with his wife. And she said, he's not sure if he's gonna be in town yet or not, but I'll let you know the week of. And we couldn't advertise it, but we put the word out that, you know, a world champion wrestler may be here. And we ended up selling $253 in tickets. And we put on a backyard show of, I think, 6 matches. And really, and again, looking back on it, you know, we did a pretty good job with it for not knowing what the hell we were doing. And right as the show was getting ready to start, we didn't think Dominic was going to show. And this big white LTD pulled up, and he got out. And for kids as young as we were, he looked like a giant. I mean, his chest looked like a barrel. And he got out, and Dominic and I remained friends ever since. I trained through high school with Dominic, because I'd always been involved in athletics. And Dominic sort of became like a second father to me. Not that I needed one, I had a great first father, but he was just like a father figure to me. And when I was a senior in high school getting ready to graduate, I said to him, you know, I want to keep training with you and train to wrestle, but not to be a wrestler. And he said, you know, you have to go to college first. Well, I already knew I was going to college. And so I trained with them in my freshman year in college, 1982. I had my first professional match. And just did it, maybe 5, 6, 7 times a month. When you're in college, you always need to make some money to live on. And had no intentions whatsoever of going in the industry, honestly, because I didn't think I was that good at it. And when I graduated in 1986 from college, I'm a government constitution specialist, government. My actual degree is in politics and public policy with a minor in management. And I figured I would go into government and work in Harrisburg or the state capital of Pennsylvania or Washington. And there were no jobs then. It was the middle of a recession. So Eddie Gilbert had been on a tour that he had seen me and Mick Foley wrestle. And he had asked us if we were interested in going on the road. And Mick was the same as I. Neither of us thought we were that good to be able to go pro. And Eddie Gilbert called me maybe a few weeks after I graduated and asked if I'd like to come down to wrestle in the old UWF, Bill Watts' territory, which was in Dallas at the time. And so I said, sure. My plan at that time was I'll do it for 6 or 8 months until some jobs open up, and I'll go on and follow my career path. And I think we're 34, going on 35 years later, and I'm still doing this. So apparently that job never opened up in Washington.
Well, you didn't know, you could go up in 2020 now, Shane Douglas for president.
Yeah, right.
Do that now.
Anybody can be president now.
Oh yeah,
But
with Donald Trump, Shane Douglas for president, 2020. Get that down there now. So before you made a name for yourself in ECW, we'll get down to it in a minute.
Yeah.
You wrestled in WCW in the late 80s, early 90s, something like that, and you were one of the dynamic dudes.
Yes.
What was it like for you back then, and what happened when you left? Because I heard like Jim Cornette had something to do with it. I'm not sure. I want to ask you personally.
Well, it wasn't that Jim Cornette had something to do with it. At the time, there was a booking committee. They had Ric Flair on it, Jim Ross, Jim Cornette. And what was happening out of that committee was the only thing Ric Flair cared about was what Ric Flair was doing. Jim Cornette only cared about who Midnight Express was working with. Jim Ross didn't care about any of it. He was announcing it all. And so as a result, guys like me and Pillman and Steve Austin and Johnny Ace and Tom Zank, we were sort of muddling around at the bottom and nobody giving us any direction or assistance to help push up the ladder. And they had split me and Johnny up. Sting had gotten hurt. It was after Sting blew his knee out. And Luger was off with some injury. Jim Ross called me at home and said, we need you back. I had a slight knee surgery myself, a scope. And he said, we need you back as soon as possible. We're going to start giving you a huge singles push. So I got back. The first day was in Baton Rouge. And I was off for 6 weeks. And I got back and I was at catering. And Missy Hyde, who I'd known for years at that point, came out of the production meeting and she said, I don't know why, Shane. She said, they were talking horrible about you in there. And I said, well, Jim Ross had been kissing my ass for 6 weeks, telling me to hurry up and get back. So, but occasionally, Missy could get things wrong, maybe not understand something the way it was meant to say or whatever. So at that moment, that's what I was thinking, that she had messed something up. So I went to find Jim Ross. As I'm walking down the hall, Teddy Long, the referee, at that time was just a referee, was walking down the hall and he had a clipboard and said, okay, Shane, like he was the boss. Shane, tonight you're working with Mark Callis and he's going to beat you in 2 or 3 minutes with a hard punch. I went, I don't think so. I'll put him over, but he's not going to beat me clean like that.
Yeah. So
I went to find Jim Ross to get to the bottom of it, and Jim Ross, of course, disavowed it. Hell no, that's not what I told that stupid son of a bitch. And he tells me to go find Jody Hamilton. So I go find Jody Hamilton, and Jody Hamilton won't even look at me. He tells me, you'll do what the hell you're told, or you can get the hell out of here. At that point, I threw a garbage can at him and said, I'll get the hell out of here then. And I went to leave. Wahoo McDaniels came and tried to stop me. And I told him, I said, Wahoo, God bless you, I love you, but I can't work for people like this anymore. They're idiots. And if somebody can't tell you in any walk of life, not just wrestling, if somebody can't look you in the eye and give you the straight scoop, whatever it is, good or bad, if they're going to sugarcoat it and bullshit it and pass the finger, go talk to him, no, go talk to him, no, go talk to him, no, go talk to her, those are bad people to work for.
Yeah.
And I had been talking at that point because of Dominic and his connection to WWF, I've been talking to Pat Patterson for about a year, off and on. Not for a job, just saying hello and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, I'll just go and call them and see if there's anything that happens there. So I called Pat and he said, we'd love to have you. So Eddie Gilbert called me and heard what happened. Eddie wasn't on the road, he was in Atlanta. He called me and he said, stop in Atlanta on your way home and stop in and see Jim Hurd in the morning. Explain to him what's going on, because apparently what was being mentioned in the office, like me getting this big singles push, was being changed in the field, and then they would come back with some sort of, Shane was an asshole, didn't want to do it or whatever, and try to put the heat on the talent. So I stopped the next morning like an idiot, but Jim Hurd was an idiot. And so I stopped there to talk to Jim Hurd, and he comes in, spitting nails at me. I know you're talking to, and I know where you're going, and I'm telling you, you're about to make the biggest mistake of your career, and I'll prove. So I looked at it and read it, and what it was a list of, it had at the very top WWF's ratings, and then down below it had Memphis, Portland, Florida Championship Wrestling, UWF. It had like 6, 7 companies listed, and all their ratings together didn't equal Vince's. And he was trying to say, see, so you can see here, because it was like 7.4 versus 7.1. Vince is ahead, but these were 6 companies combined. And I said, I don't think you understand this paper, because you're not a fly on his ass at this point. And I left, and that was the first time I went to WWF in 1990, and spent a year and a half there, very uneventful. Had a good time, made decent money, but was just a mid-card guy. And left there in 1991 because my dad had come down with latter stage emphysema and couldn't live alone. So I went home to take care of him, and that's when I got my first teaching job.
Oh, very perfect. And how did the teaching job go then? Did it go down well?
I love teaching. I loved my field of politics and history and the Constitution. I love teaching that stuff, and I love teaching kids. What I found in education in America, though, is that the people running the schools, the people running the school boards, the people that are the superintendents of the schools, don't give a rat's ass about the kids or the education. All they care about is their paycheck continuing to come in. And I saw that time and time again. I only ever worked for one guy. His name was Ron Young. He was the principal of a school called Western Beaver High School, and which was down in the Beaver County, Pennsylvania. He was a phenomenal principal, old school principal, backed his teachers, supported his teachers, and of all the years I taught, my year and a half in Western Beaver was my most enjoyable because of that. You could actually teach. Every place else, you were basically a high-paid babysitter. You'd have kids cussing you out, walking out of the classroom, leaving the school building without permission. And legalities, especially in Sue Happy America, if your kid comes to my school and leaves and gets hurt during that time, a car wreck or something, God forbid, we're responsible, because he's our ward from the time he leaves your house until the time he gets back to your house. So this principal, who's now the superintendent in Beaver, Pennsylvania, his name's John Hanson, was the principal at the time. I was going down to cafeteria duty, and I hear kids leaving to the back of the building, which is where the teachers' cars were parked. Their kids weren't allowed back there. So I looked out and trying to stop whoever it was. When I looked out, there was 50, 60 kids leaving, far too many for me to stop on my own. So I went down to the cafeteria with John Hanson, and I said, John, we got a problem. About 60 kids just walked out the back door. He said, oh, that's no big deal. I said, what do you mean it's no big deal? It's a pretty big deal in my book. He said, well, it's no big deal. He said, kids have been doing that here for years. They leave at lunchtime and go to McDonald's and come back. I said, what happens if one ends up in a car accident or, God forbid, killed? He said, oh, you really think that's going to happen, Mr. Martin? Nobody ever intends an accident to happen, but they happen every damn day. And this was the mindset of these people. They didn't care about the kids. They didn't care about the education process. All they cared about was that their paycheck keeps coming in. Don't rock the boat. And again, like the same reason I don't work for Vince anymore. I can't work for people that aren't willing to do the task at hand. If you're commissioned to educate children, that should be your only thought. Yeah. All my teachers, teachers in America now in the last 20, 30 years are starting to finally make decent money. When I was a student in school, at that
generation.